Welcome, truth seekers and those brave enough to peer into the abyss. Tonight, we unravel a truly perplexing and chilling case that tested the mettle of investigators and plunged a thriving American city into paranoia. The Midnight Accountant. Before we audit the dark secrets of this meticulous killer, if you're drawn to tales where logic meets terror, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us dissect these complex criminal minds. Now, prepare to count the cost of darkness. The city of Metropolis, a fictional, bustling urban center in the American Northeast, was a beacon of progress and opportunity, its towering skyscrapers piercing the clouds, its streets teeming with the vibrant hum of ambition. It was a place where millions lived their lives, largely anonymously, amidst the organized chaos of modern urbanity. This anonymity, however, provided a fertile ground for a new, chilling kind of predator, one who operated with the precision of a ledger sheet and left behind a disturbing, symmetrical trail of death. The first victim was a shock, but in a city of millions, individual tragedies, however brutal, often faded into the background. Eleanor Vance, 42, a successful but somewhat reclusive financial analyst, was found in her pristine, high-rise apartment. The scene was meticulously clean, almost clinical. No forced entry, no signs of struggle. Eleanor was seated at her dining table, her hands clasped neatly on a blank notepad, her eyes wide open, staring at a single, meticulously folded origami crane placed precisely in the center of the table. The cause of death was a single, precisely placed stab wound to the heart, delivered with surgical accuracy. The only disturbance was a faint, almost imperceptible scent of cinnamon. Detective Marcus Mac Thorne, a grizzled veteran of the city's homicide division, known for his cynical wit and sharp instincts, took the case. Mac had seen it all. Rage-fueled violence, desperate robberies, cold-blooded hits. But this was different. The utter lack of chaos, the chilling order of the scene, spoke of a killer who wasn't just violent, but meticulously, unsettlingly precise. The origami crane was particularly unsettling. It wasn't a taunt. It felt like a signature, a statement of ownership. The police investigated Eleanor's life, her finances, her relationships, her few acquaintances. She had no known enemies, no illicit dealings. She was, by all accounts, a quiet, orderly woman. The case quickly stalled, eventually filed as a high-profile but baffling isolated homicide. In a city where crime was a daily occurrence, it seemed destined to become a cold case. Then, 3 months later, the chilling pattern emerged. Arthur Henderson, 55, a retired librarian known for his quiet, methodical life, was found in his equally immaculate brownstone. Like Eleanor, there was no forced entry, no sign of struggle. He was seated at his desk, hands neatly clasped over an open, blank journal. On the journal, a single, perfectly folded origami heron. The same precise stab wound, the same wide, staring eyes, the same faint scent of cinnamon in the air. Mac felt a cold dread settle in his gut. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a serial killer, operating with a chilling level of precision and leaving a disturbing, symmetrical signature. The city, oblivious to the first murder, now awoke to a terrifying reality. The origami killer, the Symmetry slayer, the Midnight Accountant media headline screamed, capturing the public's morbid fascination and deepening sense of dread. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit was called in, sending Agent Sarah Chun, a brilliant young profiler with a background in forensic psychology. Chun, with her sharp intellect and meticulous approach, saw the killer's personality reflected in his crimes. Highly intelligent, organized, meticulous to the point of obsession. The victims, seemingly random, must share a hidden commonality known only to the killer. The precise stab wound indicated a killer with anatomical knowledge, possibly medical training, or at least a chilling expertise with blades. The lack of forced entry suggested someone who was either incredibly stealthy, extremely patient, or had some means of bypassing security systems, perhaps by exploiting simple human error. The origami figures were the killer's most unique calling card. Each bird was perfectly folded, flawless. This spoke of immense patience, precision, and potentially a symbolic language. What did the crane and the heron mean? Were they chosen randomly, or did they hold a specific significance to the killer or his victims? Botanists and cultural experts were consulted, but their insights remained speculative. Mack and Chun worked tirelessly, dissecting every aspect of the victims' lives. Eleanor Vance, orderly, analytical, almost obsessive about routine. Arthur Henderson, methodical, a lover of order and quiet predictability. They were not wealthy, not powerful, not connected in any obvious way. But they both lived lives characterized by a profound sense of order, routine, and a quiet, almost reclusive existence. Chen's profile began to solidify. The killer targeted individuals who embodied a certain sense of meticulousness, symmetry, and routine in their lives. He was obsessed with order, perhaps to the point of psychopathy. The killings were not about rage or passion, but about control, about imposing his ultimate order upon the imperfect lives of others. The origami figures were a statement of this control, a final, perfect symbol of his work. The scent of cinnamon was another enigma, a subtle, almost intimate detail in a killer so detached. The city, once vibrant, began to show signs of fear. People became wary of strangers, suspicious of quiet neighbors. Apartment buildings beefed up security. The illusion of urban anonymity, once a shield, now felt like a terrifying vulnerability. Everyone became a potential victim. The investigation was a frustrating dance in the dark. No fingerprints, no usable DNA. The killer left no trace, other than the chilling order of his crime scenes. The power grid in both victims' buildings showed no anomalies. This killer was a ghost, a methodical phantom moving through the city's intricate veins, leaving behind only the cold, precise symmetry of death. Mack, a man of action, felt the gnawing frustration of chasing a shadow. Chun, however, saw the killer's very meticulousness as his potential downfall. Perfection, by its nature, was a pattern, and patterns could be broken or, more accurately, predicted. The midnight accountant was out there, balancing his ledger with human lives, and Mack and Chan knew they were in a race against time before his chilling symmetry claimed its next, perfectly organized victim from the heart of their bustling, now terrified city. The hunt was on, and the disquieting symmetry of death had just begun to unfold. The city of Metropolis had become a chessboard, and the midnight accountant was moving his pieces with chilling precision. After the initial 2 murders, a third victim surfaced 2 months later, solidifying the pattern and deepening the city's paralysis. Dr. Julian Thorne, 61, a renowned physicist known for his meticulous research and an almost obsessive attention to detail, was found in his well-appointed townhouse. Like the others, no forced entry, no struggle, a single, precise stab wound to the heart. He was seated at his antique writing desk, hands neatly clasped over a blank manuscript, and on the manuscript, a perfectly folded origami falcon, its paper wings poised for flight. The faint scent of cinnamon lingered in the air. The terror in Metropolis was now palpable, no longer a distant threat, but a creeping reality. The origami killer, as the media persistently called him, was no phantom. He was a highly intelligent, meticulously organized predator, moving through the city with chilling impunity. The FBI escalated its involvement, bringing in additional resources, but even with increased manpower, the killer remained elusive. Agent Sarah Chun refined her profile. The common thread among the victims was undeniable. They were all individuals who lived lives of extreme order, precision, and intellectual rigor. Eleanor Vance, the financial analyst, Arthur Henderson, the meticulous librarian, Julian Thorne, the precision physicist. They were systems people, individuals who found comfort and purpose in logic, patterns, and predictability. He's targeting people who mirror his own obsessive nature, Chan theorized, but he's asserting his ultimate control over their order. He's breaking their system by imposing his own, final one. The origami animals also took on a new significance. The crane, longevity, purity. The heron, solitude, patience. The falcon, precision, hunting. They weren't random. They represented aspects of the killer's twisted worldview, perhaps even his own self-perception or qualities he sought to collect from his victims. The cinnamon scent remained an enigma, an intimate detail in a killer who otherwise seemed devoid of human emotion. Detective Mac Thorne, weary but determined, focused on the logistical puzzle. How was the killer gaining entry without forced signs? They considered everything: locksmith skills, insider access, a hidden key. But Chen's theory about exploiting vulnerabilities and human error seemed most plausible. The killer wasn't breaking in. He was walking in, perhaps observing routines and finding a moment when a door was left ajar, a window unlocked, or a delivery left unattended. He was a master of observation and patience. The task force launched a citywide awareness campaign, urging residents to double-check their locks, secure their windows, and report any suspicious activity, no matter how minor. This heightened vigilance, however, also led to a deluge of false alarms, straining already stretched police resources. The technological aspect of the investigation shifted to data analysis. They started sifting through publicly available information on individuals with backgrounds in anatomy, origami arts, and particularly those with a history of behavioral issues or a known fascination with systems and order. This was a vast, daunting undertaking in a city of millions, but it was their only hope of finding a needle in a haystack. Meanwhile, a chilling detail emerged from the periphery of the cases. All 3 victims had, at some point in the last year, contracted a highly specialized, boutique home organization or professional consulting service that promised to bring ultimate order to their clients' lives, often dealing with personal documents, financial records, or extensive private libraries. This was a subtle, almost invisible thread connecting them. The service, Nexus Organizers, was small, discreet, and exclusive. Mac felt a jolt of recognition. This was it. Point of commonality. A place where the killer could gain trusted access to highly organized individuals. Nexus Organizers was run by a man named Julian Reed, a former management consultant known for his obsessive attention to detail and his seemingly boundless energy for creating perfect systems. Reed had a reputation for being a bit eccentric, but undeniably brilliant at his job. He had also, according to his online profile, a surprising hobby: a deep, almost academic interest in the art of origami. The pieces began to fall into place with a terrifying click. Reed's background in management consulting provided the systems obsession. His professional services gave him legitimate, trusted access to the homes of his victims. His origami hobby explained the calling card. His meticulous nature explained the clean crime scenes. But the medical precision of the stab wounds and the cinnamon scent remained mysteries. A deeper dive into Julian Reed's background revealed a period in his past where he had briefly pursued a medical degree, dropping out unexpectedly after 2 years. This explained the anatomical knowledge. The cinnamon, however, was still an enigma. Chen's profile solidified. Julian Reed was a textbook narcissistic psychopath, obsessed with control and order. He saw himself as a superior intellect, entitled to impose his perfect order on others. His victims, precise and orderly, were chosen because they reflected his own traits, making them worthy of his ultimate solution: death. The origami was his signature, his way of claiming authorship over their final, silent, perfected state. The task force now had a prime suspect, but they needed to be cautious. Reed was intelligent, meticulous, and likely aware of the investigation's intensity. He was a master of blending in, of appearing harmless. An overt move could spook him, sending him into hiding or, worse, prompting him to strike again in a desperate act of defiance. They initiated round-the-clock surveillance on Julian Reed, both at his home and his office. They looked for any deviation from his meticulous routine, any sign of stress or recognition. They meticulously tracked his movements, hoping to catch him in a moment of vulnerability, to find definitive proof that the mild-mannered organizer was indeed the chilling midnight accountant who had been balancing his ledger with the lives of the city's most orderly citizens. The city held its breath, unknowingly watched by its predator, as the net slowly, meticulously, began to close around the man who brought a terrifying, perfect symmetry to death. The surveillance on Julian Reed was an exercise in extreme patience and mounting tension. Agent Sarah Chun and Detective Mac Thorne, along with their specialized team, observed Reed's every move, his life a symphony of precise, almost robotic efficiency. He drove the same route, ate the same lunch, and approached his work with an obsessive focus. He was a ghost in plain sight, perfectly integrated into the city's complex rhythm. The breakthrough, seemingly insignificant yet profoundly telling, came from a subtle deviation in his routine. Julian Reed, a man who never deviated from his meticulously planned schedule, began to visit a specific, unassuming flower shop in a quiet neighborhood, miles from his typical haunts. He didn't buy flowers. He bought large quantities of dried cinnamon sticks. Always cash. Always at irregular intervals, usually late in the evening. This was the final piece of the puzzle. The cinnamon scent, the subtle, intimate detail at every crime scene, was connected. It wasn't just a preference. It was part of his ritual, perhaps used to mask other scents, or simply a personal touch to his macabre art. With the cinnamon, the origami, the precision stabbings, the shared victimology, and his trusted access, the case against Julian Reed was finally solid. The warrant for his arrest and the search of his home and office was approved, signaling the end of the long, painstaking hunt. The arrest was executed with the same meticulous precision that characterized Reed's crimes. A tactical team, moving silently and swiftly, apprehended him at his apartment as he was preparing his morning tea. He offered no resistance, no struggle, his expression one of calm, almost philosophical acceptance. "It's time, then," he said, his voice quiet, devoid of surprise, as if he had simply anticipated this final, logical step in his grand design. The search of Julian Reed's apartment and office revealed a chilling testament to his profound pathology. His home was immaculate, organized with an almost terrifying exactitude. Every book was alphabetized by author, then by title, every utensil perfectly aligned in its drawer. In a hidden compartment behind a false bookcase, they found a pristine collection of razor-sharp surgical knives, each meticulously cleaned and oiled, and next to them, a comprehensive, leather-bound ledger. This was the midnight accountant's true work. The ledger was a chilling document, detailing each victim, not by their name, but by a numerical code. Each entry included their perceived flaws, lack of ultimate efficiency, deviation from optimal routine, resistance to true order. Beside each entry was a detailed account of the cleansing process, the meticulous planning, the precise execution, and a diagram of the specific origami bird chosen for each victim, along with its symbolic meaning to Reed. The final entry for each victim was marked, "Balance achieved." The ledger was his ultimate record, his horrifying tally of imposed order. The revelation of Julian Reed's identity and the chilling details of his motives sent shockwaves through Metropolis and beyond. The media descended with renewed fervor. The mild-mannered, obsessive organizer was unmasked as a cold, calculating serial killer, driven by a profound need to impose his twisted version of order on the world, one precisely executed murder at a time. During his interrogation, Julian Reed spoke with a calm, almost academic detachment. He didn't confess in the traditional sense. He lectured. He articulated his worldview with chilling clarity, explaining how he perceived the world as inherently chaotic and inefficient, and how his victims, though outwardly orderly, contained subtle impurities or deviations that required his ultimate intervention. The murders were not acts of violence, but acts of purification, of balancing the ledger, each designed to bring a profound, permanent order to chaos. The origami birds were symbols of this achieved purity, this final, perfect state. The cinnamon, he explained with a faint, almost imperceptible smile, was simply a personal touch, a scent of clarity and focus for his sacred work. He expressed no remorse, no regret, only a sense of frustration that his work had been interrupted. He saw himself not as a criminal, but as a misunderstood philosopher, a master accountant of existence. The trial was a high-profile spectacle. Psychologists testified to his severe obsessive-compulsive personality disorder intertwined with narcissistic psychopathy. The prosecution presented the overwhelming forensic evidence, the chilling ledger, and Reed's own emotionless confessions. His defense, that he was merely a performance artist or a philosophical purist, was easily dismissed. The jury, horrified by the cold, calculating nature of his crimes, swiftly delivered a guilty verdict on multiple counts of first-degree murder. Julian Reed was sentenced to multiple life terms, ensuring he would never again walk free. In prison, he reportedly continued his work in his mind, meticulously organizing his thoughts, perhaps even creating new ledgers in his head, forever balancing the scales of his twisted, internal universe. The unmasking of the Midnight Accountant brought a profound sense of relief to Metropolis, but the scars of his reign of terror lingered. The chilling image of a single, perfectly folded origami bird, a symbol of order turned into an emblem of death, was etched into the city's collective memory. The case of Julian Reed became a stark reminder that even in the heart of a bustling, seemingly anonymous metropolis, the most terrifying monsters can be those who blend seamlessly into the background, driven by a logic so precise, so utterly devoid of humanity, that it transforms the ordinary into the terrifying, forever altering the symmetry of a city and leaving behind a chilling, indelible record of its darkest hours. The ledger was closed, but its unsettling numbers would echo for generations.